Welcome, everybody. All right, 23-24 season is over. Up and down year, but continue to be really excited and optimistic about where we're headed. The goal, throughout this season with this pretty much brand new group was essentially develop these guys, turn them into functional high-end basketball players, and then also start establishing our identity. How do we play? How do we gel together? Where are we headed? Those types of things. Individually, there were a lot of successes. Scoot Henderson's last 20 games, DeAndre Ayton post All-Star break, Shaedon Sharp's first 20 games, Toumani Camara's entire season, Chris Murray's emergence late, Ryan Rupert shooting the ball better, Delano Banton post-trade deadline. So we're seeing a lot of good things happen throughout our roster. We just need to get that more frequent, more consistent, and happening more often throughout, from two ways all the way to the top of our roster. We've just got to keep getting better, and that's our challenge this offseason. We're going to continue to be aggressive and optimistic, looking for ways to improve this roster for the near future and the long term. And once again, we're just really excited about what we've accomplished thus far, and know we have a lot of work to do, but we're well on our way. With that, I'll open up to questions.
Will there be any kind of philosophical change in terms of going from development first, winning second, to maybe being more, like you said, you want to be aggressive, but being overly aggressive that makes you put together a roster that can actually compete? Mm-hmm.
Well, we're heavily invested in our, in a lot of our young guys. So development will continue to be a focus. We're not going to win at an extremely high level until some of those guys are ready. But at the same time, it's our job to give them the best environment to thrive in. And often that's with additional help. I think this year there were some flaws in the roster, especially in some missing skill sets and just in general imbalance, where it made it complicated for those guys to reach their highest potential. There's skill sets we need to add, like we need more shooters. We've got to open up the floor for guys. We need more playmaking. We need more defenders. There's a lot of things we need. So we're going to continue to evaluate how do we supplement the existing group that we have, but at the same time not ignoring we're not good enough yet. We don't have enough talent. Like, we've got to keep boosting our talent base. And I mean, it might be our most, important thing we do this summer is keep adding to this talent base.
Joe, what do you feel like you do? I mean, there's been a lot of, injuries, not a lot of continuity this season. So there's a lot of stuff that you don't know about kind of what this group can be together. What do you feel like you do know about this group kind of now that the season's over?
Yeah. You're right, Sean, with all the different lineups that we played this year, it's hard to point to a cohesive group and look and say, well, how do they exactly fit together? So what I've done this year more than anything, and what we're all looking at, is individually, where do these guys stand? What is each player on their own capable of? And then over time here, as we get to, acclimate them more and more, how do they gel together? And, that's what a winning product is going to look like. Once our talent base gets adequate, and once our system is able to, we're able to put these guys together in a comprehensive system, then we can start looking at outcomes.
Joe, Chauncey said that he had come into this year believing that you guys could win while developing. Mm-hmm. And he said maybe he was overly optimistic about that. But to hear you talk about development, and it sounds like patience is going to be really important with the young guys you do have. Mm-hmm. Chauncey's made a lot of comments lately about wanting to compete and wanting to win. Are you guys in the same place? Or is the front office and the coaching staff in the same place? Like, are you guys on the same page about what this is going to look like going forward?
Mm-hmm. We're on the same page that on a given night we want to be really, really competitive. and we want to keep taking steps in the right direction. I think that's an important part of this. A year like this one, it was hard when, we weren't as competitive on a cumulative one-loss record from a cumulative one-loss standpoint as we wanted to be. But I think we're really proud of how we competed on most nights. Now, moving forward, our goal is to keep progressing. And the rate can get complicated. The rate matters on how much are our guys developing, how quickly is Scoot coming along, how quickly is Shaden coming along, what transactions do we make this offseason, what does that look like, how talented can we become in the near future. And we're going to have to recalibrate that after this offseason and get a more accurate viewpoint of, okay, what is this roster really capable of?
I mean, are you guys committed to Chauncey going into next season, I guess?
Yes. Mm-hmm.
End of last season, last exit interview, you mentioned Chauncey's impact on the organization as a whole. Can you give any specific examples, away from the court about how he's impacted the Blazers? What's better about the Blazers in 2024 because of Chauncey?
Yeah. Chauncey's an incredible leader in this organization. Like, he goes above and beyond what a standard coach does. I mean, he helps me with staffing. Like, he's a part of all of our high-end staffing interviews. We spend a lot of time talking about our different departments throughout this organization and how we can make them better. He's really active with feedback and ideas and just looking at ways that we can improve. He's an incredible teacher, not just with our players and, in their development and in their, teaching them how to navigate this league, but also to our staff. I mean, he's a valuable scout. He's got a great eye and great feel for the game. So his personality is thoroughly felt throughout this building.
Joe, how big of a decision can you make on this roster going forward with the limited data set? How willing are you to index yourself? Smaller decisions to bigger decisions, considering the lack of data.
It's one of our biggest obstacles from this season is we didn't get a ton of data. But as a scout, as a person that evaluates personnel, it's sometimes you only have those small samples to make decisions. When we're scouting an international player and they play 8 minutes in that game and you get more out of warm-ups than you do during the game, sometimes you just have to make decisions based on the data you have and make your best guess. And obviously we have way more data than an 8-minute little subset, but on someone like Shaden, we've got to go off of 25 healthy games instead of it would have been ideally 75. But I think we still have windows that we can look through in order to give us a feel for what happened.
Will anything be done contract-wise with Chauncey so that he's not on basically a one-year guaranteed deal?
With all staff, I'll never get into contract discussions publicly. Yeah.
And just to clarify, the plan, it sounds like if something presented itself that allowed you to, boom, we could be a playoff team, you'll go that route, but you're not going to throw all your chips in like you've talked about in the past because you value the youngsters' growth that much, and that if it comes to it and go to the next season with development being the primary focus again.
It's going to be a similar approach that we took to the trade deadline. Like, if the right player is available, if the right deal is there, if that player fits our timeline, and our timeline being short term, medium term, and long term, if that player fits with what we're trying to build, we will gladly go out and get that player. But that player has to make sense, from A, what does it take to get him? And B, how does he work towards our cap? And C, how does he fit with this group moving forward? So I don't think, once again, we're not talented enough to be dismissive of any upgrades. And I will look at those, but they do need to fit a certain criteria that they can grow with this group.
Joe, obviously you guys are going to have, somewhere up there in a pick, top 5, hopefully. What have been your impressions of, this draft class? Because obviously it's been kind of talked about a little bit weaker. I mean, how does that kind of change how you value that pick this offseason?
We view it as an intriguing opportunity. This draft, there doesn't seem to be a ton of consensus, and we view that as an opportunity. That might allow us to find a player that someone didn't value as highly. They might be able to, get additional value beyond ahead of where they were selected. Like maybe we can find an incredible steal or surprise due to the uncertainty and the confusion that can come with not a chalk draft. Like there's a lot of changes that can happen. It's going to open up a lot of opportunities for trades. It's going to open up a lot of opportunity for movement within those pick ranges. So I mean, for us, we view it as a exciting opportunity.
Did you learn more or enough about the three main guards, Scoot, Sharp, and Ant, to have a better idea of what the future looks like in the backcourt, or is it still too early in the process?
Yeah, I mean, we've learned a lot. The number one thing I've learned is they're all incredibly talented. And I keep saying that. You've probably heard me say talent at least 5 or 10 times this session. But it's true that we're not good enough to be dismissive of any talent throughout our roster. And what we saw from Scoot, Shaden, and Ant together and at different times, I think we saw a lot of high-end potential. And really, that's what we're looking for here.
And there was a massive competition with a lot of young forwards. How do you analyze and sort of assess that group?
Yeah, it's a convoluted group in a good way. I think it's one of the big positives of how this season has played out. Tumani came in and essentially won the starting job right out of the gate and got better and better as the season went on. Jabari had a really nice year overall, highlighted by some, I thought, really high-end performances towards the end of the season, especially, obviously he rebounded the ball extremely well, but just in his overall aggressiveness and impact. Chris Murray showed his capabilities on both sides of the ball, like his ability to cover multiple different types of guys, his ability to play off the move offensively, his ability to be a nice glue guy in our league. I think all those things can, benefit us in so many different ways. But at the same time, we've got to figure out, who's playing and who isn't. Like these guys, like they still have a lot to prove and a lot to earn. And each of those guys that I named have some deficiencies that they have to address this offseason and moving forward. And, that's the culture we're trying to build is, come in and win your job. And, I told a lot of guys today in the exit interviews, my job is to find somebody better than you. My job is to find somebody to beat you out. Just as when I brought you in, you beat this person out. So, keep your pedal to the metal here because, our goal is to crank this up. And I like these guys, these young forwards mentalities. It's definitely something we've emphasized, and I'm happy with where these guys are at.
I've asked one more question. We have to ask you about Ayton. He killed it the last 6 weeks. The last time we talked to you publicly was at the trade deadline where he was kind of struggling. What do you make of what he was able to do? And do you expect that guy to show up day one next year?
I do. DeAndre, he's made such steps this year. I mean, he obviously came in. We all know that DeAndre Ayton's extremely talented. But it was really encouraging to see the way he navigated this season. He started with us right when training camp started, so didn't get time to acclimate. And you saw early on it was a little shaky, and I wouldn't even say it's his fault. It was just us learning how to utilize him and his teammates learning how to find him in the right spots, and then also him just acclimating and adjusting to this system. And by the time January, February hit, you could see like DA was a different player in his mentality. And I think a lot of that was he became comfortable and he began trusting us, and his happiness was increasing by the day. And you could see the relationship between he and his coach and he and his teammates was just getting better by the day. And by the end of the year, it became pretty fluid and common where he was putting together these big nights, and none of them were really fluky. This was just DA getting opportunity and DA doing his things. And I couldn't be prouder of him. Like, he's in a great place right now, and there's a lot of growth moving forward. You know, DeAndre is still a very young big man in our league who's about as talented as they come, and that's our challenge, to maximize DeAndre Ayton, and I'm really excited to see what that looks like. Thank you, everybody, for your coverage all season. You all are awesome. Really appreciate everything you do.
Thanks.
Yeah.